Number: The Vanishing Fleet. Captain Zethkar of the Galactic Trade Federation had seen many strange things during his 40 cycles of service. But nothing like this. His ship, the Times Prosperity's Edge *, drifted at the edge of the Sol system. Sensors sweeping the empty space, where the human merchant vessel Times Terra's Pride Times had vanished 3 days ago. "Still nothing, Captain," reported his navigation officer, a young Altarian whose blue skin had taken on a pale shade of worry. "No debris, no energy signatures, no distress beacon. It's like they just stopped existing." Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The humans had been traveling from Mars to Jupiter when they disappeared. Standard route. No hostile activity reported. Perfect weather conditions. Yet somehow, a ship carrying 200 souls had simply vanished without a trace. This was the 17th disappearance in the Sol system over the past 6 months. The galactic community had initially dismissed the reports. Humans were new to space travel, barely a century since their first fumbling steps beyond their atmosphere. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards, their ships held together with what the humans themselves called duct tape and prayer. Equipment failures were expected, but 17 ships? That was beyond coincidence. "Captain, incoming transmission from Federation Command," announced the communications officer, her tentacles dancing over the control panel. Admiral Korvash's stern face appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features tight with concern. "Captain Zethkar, I trust your investigation is proceeding? With respect, Admiral, there's nothing to investigate. Whatever happened here left no evidence behind. That's impossible. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Matter cannot simply cease to exist." Zethkar had served under Korvash for 20 cycles, and had never heard uncertainty in the Admiral's voice before. But it was there now. A tremor that spoke of fears the old warrior wouldn't voice. "Perhaps the humans know something we don't," Zethkar suggested carefully. "Their government has been uncooperative with our investigation teams." The Admiral's silence stretched for long seconds. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of decisions made in dark corners of the Federation's highest levels. "The Security Council has authorized a full investigation. You're to proceed to Earth immediately and demand full cooperation from the human authorities. Use whatever pressure necessary. Endelheim. When can. Nomeran. Encan." The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at the empty screen. In his decades of service, the Federation had never demanded anything from a member species. They requested, they negotiated, they offered incentives, but they never demanded, unless they were afraid. The journey to Earth took 2 days at maximum burn. As they approached the blue-green world that had spawned humanity, Zethkar couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong. Earth's orbital traffic patterns were normal. Their defense stations powered, but not aggressive. Everything appeared routine. Too routine. "Captain, we're being hailed by Earth Defense Command," reported the communications officer. A human face appeared on screen, weathered and scarred, with the kind of eyes that had seen too much. "This is General Martinez, Earth Defense Command. Welcome to Sol System. Captain, I understand you're here about the missing ships." "Indeed, General. The Federation requires immediate access to all records relating to these disappearances, as well as any relevant sensor data or..." Zethkar paused. Way. Zethkar paused. The human was smiling, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Captain. Those records are classified under Earth Defense Protocol 7. General, with respect, the Federation's authority supersedes any local." "Round. No, Captain, it doesn't." The human's smile never wavered. "Not in this case." Zethkar felt his blood chill. In 300 cycles of galactic history, no member world had ever refused a Federation investigation. The very concept was unthinkable. General Martinez, I must inform you that failure to comply with Federation directives will result in immediate economic sanctions and possible suspension of Earth's membership status. The human actually chuckled. Go ahead, Captain. Impose your sanctions. See how that works out for you. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar's bridge in stunned silence. His crew exchanged glances that spoke of paradigms shifting beneath their feet. Sir, whispered his tactical officer, should we report this to command? Before Zethkar could answer, his sensors officer's voice cut through the bridge like a blade. Captain! I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. Something's coming online. The tactical display lit up like a festival celebration. Energy readings appeared around Earth, throughout the asteroid belt, near Jupiter's moons, even in the outer system beyond Pluto. Dozens of signatures, then hundreds, then thousands. What are we looking at? Zethkar demanded. I don't know, sir. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases. They're not following standard physics. A new voice crackled over the communications system, broadcast on all frequencies. It was General Martinez again, but this time he wasn't alone. The background showed what appeared to be a massive command center, filled with humans working at stations that pulsed with unfamiliar energy. Attention all vessels in Sol system. This is Earth Defense Command. Effective immediately. All non-human vessels are required to exit the system within 6 standard hours. Any ship remaining after that time will be detained. Zethkar's hands trembled as he reached for his communicator. General, what is the meaning of this? Earth is bound by 17 different treaties. The treaties are void, Captain. As of today, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Federation. The words hit Zethkar like a physical blow. In the entire history of the Federation, no species had ever voluntarily withdrawn. The economic benefits alone made it unthinkable. You can't survive without the Federation, Zethkar said desperately. Your technology, your trade routes, your defense agreements. General Martinez leaned forward. And for the first time, Zethkar saw something terrifying in the human's eyes. Not anger, not fear, but a cold, calculating intelligence that had been planning this moment for far longer than anyone suspected. Captain, let me tell you something about humans. We've been preparing for war since the day we learned we weren't alone in the universe. Every ship that's disappeared in our system, they didn't disappear. We captured them. Every crew member, every piece of technology, every scrap of data about Federation capabilities and weaknesses. The revelation hit Zethkar like a meteor strike. 17 ships, thousands of crew members, decades worth of Federation technology and intelligence. You see, Captain, the Federation made a mistake when they accepted humanity as a junior partner. They assumed we'd be grateful for their guidance, end quote, content to accept whatever scraps they offered us. They forgot that humans don't stay junior partners for long. Around the system, those mysterious energy signatures were resolving into something impossible. Ships, hundreds of them, emerging from hidden bases and cloaked positions. But these weren't the primitive human vessels the galaxy knew. These were something else entirely. Sleek and predatory, crackling with energies that made Zethkar's most advanced sensors scream warnings. Impossible, he whispered. Your technology level. You couldn't have. Well, next in D. Well, P. Couldn't have what? Reverse-engineered 17 Federation ships worth of technology? Couldn't have improved on designs created by species who've grown complacent over millennia of easy dominance? Couldn't have learned from the mistakes of civilizations that forgot the most important rule of survival? General Martinez stood, and behind him, the command center's activity reached a fever pitch. The rule is simple, Captain. Adapt or die. The Federation forgot how to adapt centuries ago. They became bureaucrats playing at being warriors, administrators pretending to be explorers. But humans? We've never forgotten what it means to fight for survival. Zethkar's tactical officer was frantically working his console, trying to get targeting locks on the human vessels. Sir, I can't get a read on their defenses. The energy signatures are interfering with our sensors. Don't bother, General Martinez said, somehow hearing the exchange. Your weapons can't penetrate our shields anyway. We learned a lot from those Federation ships we disappeared. The human fleet was moving now, not toward Zethkar's ship, but into formation around Earth itself, a defensive posture, but one that spoke of absolute confidence. This is madness, Zethkar said. Even if you've managed some technological breakthrough, you're one world against an entire galaxy. The Federation will mobilize every fleet. Every. 2. Will they, Captain? General Martinez interrupted. Are you sure about that? Because I think when the Federation Council learns what happened here today, they're going to have some very difficult questions to answer. Questions about how they let a primitive species acquire this much technology under their noses. Questions about their competence to lead a galactic civilization. Zethkar felt the last of his certainties crumble. The human was right. The political ramifications of this disaster would tear the Federation apart. Heads would roll. Probably literally in some member species cases. You have 4 hours, Captain, General Martinez said. I suggest you use them to get as far away from Earth as possible. And give my regards to Admiral Korvash. Tell him the students have graduated. The transmission ended, leaving Zethkar staring at a tactical display full of impossible human ships and the growing realization that everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity had been carefully orchestrated misdirection. His navigation officer's voice was barely above a whisper. Orders, Captain? Zethkar closed his 4 eyes and tried to imagine explaining this to Admiral Korvash. Tried to imagine the Federation's response when they learned that their newest, most primitive member had just demonstrated technological superiority and strategic planning that put their best military minds to shame. Set course for the edge of the system, he said finally, and prepare a priority transmission to Federation Command. Tell them. He paused, searching for words that could possibly convey the magnitude of what had just occurred. Tell them that everything has changed. As the Times Prosperity's edge times turned away from Earth, its sensors continued tracking the human fleet. More ships kept emerging from hidden positions, their numbers growing beyond anything that should have been possible. Whatever the humans had been doing during their century of primitive space travel, they had been very, very busy. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation, looking as peaceful and innocent as it always had. But Zethkar knew that image was the greatest lie in galactic history. Humanity had just declared independence from a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and somehow, impossibly, they might actually be strong enough to make it stick. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council had been called within hours of Captain Zethkar's report reaching command. In the Great Chamber on Centrus Prime, representatives from 300 worlds gathered in growing panic as the implications of humanity's actions became clear. Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony Coalition slammed his crystalline appendage against his speaking podium, the sound echoing through the chamber like breaking glass. This is precisely what we warned against when these primitives were admitted to the Federation. They are unstable, violent, unpredictable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled delegates. The admission of humanity had been controversial from the beginning. Many species had argued that humans were too young, too aggressive, too different from the civilized norms that had kept galactic peace for millennia. High Chancellor Mordoon called for order with a gesture of her 6 arms. The ancient Etherian had led the Federation for over 2 centuries, her wisdom respected across the galaxy. But today, uncertainty clouded her usually serene features. We must focus on facts, she declared, her telepathic voice reaching every mind in the chamber. Admiral Korvash, present your analysis. The old reptilian admiral rose slowly, his war-scarred hide telling stories of battles fought in the Federation's early expansion. Honored delegates, the situation is far worse than Captain Zethkar's initial report suggested. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures throughout human space. They're not just defending Earth. They're fortifying their entire colonial network. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing the human sphere of influence. Red markers indicated defensive installations that hadn't existed a week ago, spreading across dozens of star systems like a web of light. Impossible, breathed Ambassador Crixthon of the Trade Guild. Humans have only had faster-than-light travel for 80 standard years. They couldn't have built this infrastructure without us knowing. Clearly, Admiral Korvash replied grimly. Our intelligence services have failed catastrophically. Everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was carefully crafted deception. Chancellor Mordun's mental voice carried undertones of deep concern. Show them the technological analysis. The hologram shifted, displaying weapon energy signatures and shield harmonics recorded during the confrontation at Earth. The assembled delegates fell silent as they realized what they were seeing. These readings are impossible, whispered Dr. Yethmara, the Federation's chief science advisor. The energy densities exceed anything in our databases. Their shields are operating on principles we don't understand. And Ambassador Veltar's crystalline form blazed with angry light. Then we destroy them before they can use these weapons against us. The Federation has over 10,000 warships. Surely even advanced human technology cannot stand against such numbers. That would be unwise, a new voice interrupted from the chamber's entrance. Every head turned as a figure in simple human clothing walked calmly down the central aisle. Security guards moved to intercept, but Chancellor Mordun raised a hand to stop them. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, the human announced, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. Former Federation Science Council member, current representative of the Earth Defense Directorate, I come bearing a message from my government. The chamber erupted in angry voices. How had a human reached Centris Prime? The journey took weeks, even with the fastest Federation ships. And Earth had been blockaded within hours of their declaration. Dr. Chen waited patiently for the noise to subside, seemingly unconcerned by the hundreds of hostile alien eyes focused on her. When silence finally returned, she smiled with what appeared to be genuine warmth. Thank you for your attention. I'm here to explain exactly what humanity has done, and more importantly, why we did it. Chancellor Mordun's telepathic voice was carefully controlled. You stand accused of acts of war against the Federation. 17 ships and their crews have disappeared. Thousands of lives may have been lost. No one has been harmed. Dr. Chen replied immediately. Every crew member, from every captured ship, is alive and well, though they are currently our guests on a research facility in the Kuiper Belt. They're actually contributing valuable data to our ongoing studies. Studies? Admiral Korvash's voice carried dangerous undertones. What kind of studies? Dr. Chen's expression shifted to something that might have been pity. Studies on how to save your lives, Admiral. All of your lives. The chamber fell silent, confusion replacing anger. Dr. Chen activated a small device, and suddenly, the air above the central floor filled with images that made every delegate recoil in horror. Space twisted and writhed, reality itself seeming to bend and break. Through the tears in normal space-time, things moved. Things that hurt to look at directly. Beings of impossible geometry and malevolent intelligence. The Devourers. Dr. Chen said simply. That's what we call them. They're coming to this galaxy, and they'll arrive in approximately 57 years. Dr. Yethmara's scientific mind struggled to process what she was seeing. That's not possible. Our deep space sensors would have detected any approach. Your sensors can't detect them because they don't travel through normal space, Doctor, Chen explained. They move through dimensions your mathematics can't even describe. We only detected them because human brains process certain types of information differently than yours. Ambassador Veltar's light flickered with skepticism. Even if this is true, what does it have to do with your unprovoked aggression against Federation vessels? Dr. Chen turned to face him directly, and for a moment, her carefully maintained composure cracked, revealing the exhaustion and desperation beneath. Because we needed to understand your technology, your capabilities, your psychology. We needed to know if the Federation could be trusted with the truth, or if you would react the way you're reacting now. What do you mean? Chancellor Morden asked. We've been watching your response to this crisis, Dr. Chen continued. Within 6 hours of learning about our defensive preparations, the Federation Council called an emergency session to discuss military action against Earth. Your first instinct wasn't to ask why we might need such defenses, or to investigate what threat could justify such drastic action. It was to plan an attack. The accuracy of the observations sent uncomfortable ripples through the assembled delegates. Several species that had indeed been advocating for immediate military response found themselves unable to meet Dr. Chen's gaze. The Devourers aren't just another hostile species, she continued. They don't want territory or resources. They consume reality itself. Every dimension they've touched, every universe they've entered, has been reduced to empty void. And they're very, very good at turning civilizations against each other before they arrive. Admiral Korvash leaned forward. You're suggesting that our response to your actions is somehow influenced by these Devourers? Not influenced. Predicted. We've seen it happen in 17 other galaxies. Advanced civilizations receive warnings about the Devourer threat and immediately assume it's a trick by whatever species delivered the warning. They waste crucial preparation time fighting each other instead of working together. Dr. Chen gestured, and the horrible images of twisted space were replaced by star charts showing galactic regions filled with nothing but empty darkness. This is what's left of the Andorica galaxy cluster. 8 billion years of civilizational development, reduced to quantum foam in less than a century. The Devourers didn't even need to fight them directly. They just let paranoia and mistrust do the work. The chamber was utterly silent now. Even the most aggressive delegates found themselves staring at the evidence of entire galactic civilizations, simply gone. Humanity detected the Devourer approach 12 years ago, Dr. Chen continued. We immediately brought our findings to the Federation Science Council. Do you remember the response? Dr. Yeth Mara? The elderly scientist's voice was barely above a whisper. We classified your research as speculative xenobiology. The evidence was deemed insufficient for further study. Insufficient, Dr. Chen repeated sadly. 12 years of warnings. 12 years of increasingly desperate attempts to get anyone in the Federation to take the threat seriously. And what did we get? Form letters thanking us for our concern and suggestions that we focus on more practical research. Chancellor Mordoon's telepathic voice carried undertones of growing realization. So you decided to act unilaterally. We decided to prepare for the survival of all sapient life in this galaxy, with or without Federation cooperation. The captured ships provided us with detailed technical specifications for every major Federation technology. We needed to understand your capabilities, so we could design defenses that would protect all of us. You could have simply requested technical exchanges, Ambassador Crixthon protested. Dr. Chen's laugh was bitter. We tried. Formal requests were buried in bureaucracy. Informal contacts were dismissed as human paranoia. Your own security protocols prevented us from accessing the very information we needed to save your lives. She activated her device again, and new images filled the chamber. These showed vast construction projects in human space, installations that dwarfed anything the Federation had ever built. While you've been debating our membership application and discussing trade agreements, we've been building the most advanced defensive network in galactic history. Weapons that can fire through dimensional barriers. Shields that exist in multiple universes simultaneously. Manufacturing systems that can produce fleets faster than any civilization in recorded history. End quote. FN. Tingist. End quote. The scale of the construction was breathtaking. Orbital rings around entire stars. Space elevators that reached between dimensions. Artificial planets hollowed out and converted into massive weapons platforms. The reason we withdrew from the Federation, Dr. Chen continued, is because We needed to protect this technology from the political chaos that's about to tear your government apart. When the Devourers arrive, we'll need every advantage we can get. We can't afford to have our defenses compromised by species who might decide that humanity has become too dangerous to exist. Admiral Korvash's military mind was already processing the implications. You're planning to defend the entire galaxy yourself. We're planning to give the galaxy a chance to survive. Whether individual species choose to fight alongside us or continue their political games is up to them. Dr. Chen looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. The captured crews are being returned to Federation space as we speak, along with complete technical specifications for our dimensional detection systems. You'll be able to verify the Devourer threat independently within days. And then, Chancellor Mordoon asked, then you'll have a choice. You can spend the next 57 years arguing about jurisdiction and sovereignty, while the greatest threat in universal history approaches. Or you can work with us to build defenses that might actually give sapient life a future. Dr. Chen deactivated her device and began walking back toward the chamber exit. Either way, humanity will be ready. We've learned the hard way that sometimes you have to save people from themselves. As she reached the doorway, Ambassador Veltar called out desperately, "Wait. What if we choose to fight? What if the Federation decides to stop you by force?" Dr. Chen paused and looked back with an expression of infinite sadness. Then you'll discover why every military strategist in human history has emphasized the same principle. Never start a fight with someone who has more to lose than you do. We're not fighting for territory or politics or pride. We're fighting for the continued existence of consciousness in this universe. She stepped through the doorway and was gone, leaving behind a chamber full of delegates staring at images of empty space where galaxies used to be and wondering if their entire civilization had been preparing for the wrong war all along. In the silence that followed, Chancellor Mordoon's telepathic voice reached every mind present with a single, terrible question. What if the humans are right? Number. The last stand. 56 years had passed since Dr. Sarah Chen's warning to the Galactic Federation, and the universe had changed beyond recognition. Admiral Zethkar, now bearing the scars of half a century of preparation and conflict, stood on the command deck of the Federation flagship Times Unity's Hope *, watching the final defensive lines being established around the galactic core. The last year had been a testament to how quickly civilizations could unite when facing extinction. The proof of the Devourer threat had been undeniable once independent Federation scientists confirmed the dimensional scanning data. Ancient, deep space monitoring stations had been retrofitted with human-designed sensors, revealing the horrifying truth of what approached from between the stars. "Status report," Zethkar commanded, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much. Commander Thalix, a young Etherian who had never known a galaxy without the Devourer threat, consulted her instruments. All defensive sectors report ready. The human installations are at full power, and the combined fleet is in position. Through the massive viewports, Zethkar could see the fruits of nearly 6 decades of frantic preparation. The defensive grid stretched across light years, a web of impossible human technology interwoven with the best efforts of 300 Federation worlds. Massive stations powered by harvested stellar energy hung in space like artificial stars, their weapons capable of striking targets in parallel dimensions. It had taken the Federation 47 years to truly understand what humanity had accomplished. The humans hadn't just built better weapons or stronger shields. They had fundamentally altered the nature of warfare itself, creating defenses that existed simultaneously across multiple realities and weapons that could destroy enemies that didn't technically exist in normal space. "Sir, incoming transmission from Terra Station," reported the communications officer. General Martinez appeared on the main screen, his hair now white with age, but his eyes still carrying that same calculating intelligence that had terrified Zethkar decades ago. Behind him, the command center had evolved into something that resembled the bridge of a ship that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. "Admiral Zethkar, good to see you again," Martinez said with genuine warmth. Despite everything that had happened, a mutual respect had developed between the old soldiers over the years of preparation. General, are your people ready? As ready as anyone can be for what's coming. Our dimensional anchors are holding steady, and the quantum disruption fields are at full power. If our calculations are correct, we should be able to force them into normal space, where conventional weapons can actually hurt them. Zethkar nodded grimly. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, and terrifying in its requirements. The humans had discovered that devourers were virtually invulnerable while traveling through their native dimensions, but became merely extremely dangerous when forced into standard space-time. The trick was creating enough dimensional distortion to trap them without tearing apart local reality in the process. Any word from the evacuation fleets? Zethkar asked. Martinez's expression darkened. 17 billion souls have been successfully relocated to the fortress systems in the Outer Rim. If we fail here, they should have enough resources to rebuild civilization, assuming the devourers don't pursue them. The evacuation had been humanity's idea as well, another demonstration of their strategic thinking. While most species had wanted to put everything into the defense of their homeworlds, humans had insisted on building hidden refuge colonies in the empty spaces between galactic arms. Insurance against the worst-case scenario. General, I wanted to thank you, Zethkar said quietly, for everything. I know the Federation didn't make things easy in the early years. Martinez smiled sadly. You were scared. We understood that. Hell, we were terrified too. The difference was that we'd been living with existential dread since we first looked up at the stars. You'd had millions of years of peace to get soft. And yet here we are, fighting together. Here we are, Martinez agreed. Though I have to say, when we first started planning this defense network, we never imagined it would include hegemony battlecruisers powered by human reality engines. It had been the strangest alliance in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves working together, sharing their most closely guarded secrets in the face of universal extinction. The hegemony's mastery of energy manipulation, combined with human dimensional technology and Federation organizational capabilities, had created defenses that no single civilization could have managed alone. Sir, Commander Thalix called out urgently. Dimensional distortions detected at the edge of the grid. Multiple contacts. Massive signatures. They're here. The viewports automatically dimmed as the defensive sensors engaged. Through the layers of protective fields, reality itself began to writhe and twist. Space folded in ways that hurt to perceive directly, and through the tears came glimpses of something vast and hungry. All stations, this is Admiral Zethkar, he announced on the fleet-wide channel. Today we fight not for our governments or our territories, but for the right of consciousness to exist in this universe. Whatever happens, know that every thinking being in galactic history would be proud to stand with us today. The first devourers emerged from their dimensional tiers like nightmares given form. They defied description, existing partially in normal space while extending into realities that followed different physical laws. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in appendages that reached through dimensions to strike at targets that might be light years away. Dimensional anchors engaging, Martinez reported, as his weapons came online. Streams of energy that existed in 17 different realities simultaneously reached out to grasp the invaders, forcing them partially into normal space where they became vulnerable. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Federation ships fired weapons that struck enemies in parallel universes, while human installations created gravity wells that folded space-time itself into defensive barriers. Hegemony vessels channeled the power of entire stars through weapons systems that human engineers had deemed theoretically impossible. For hours, the defenders held their ground. The dimensional anchors performed as designed, trapping dozens of devourers in normal space where the combined fleet could actually hurt them. Massive alien forms writhed and screamed in frequencies that bypassed the ears and struck directly at the soul as concentrated fire from 300 worlds tore them apart. But for every devourer destroyed, 2 more emerged from the dimensional tiers. They adapted quickly, learning to resist the anchoring systems and finding ways to strike at the defenders from angles that shouldn't exist. Grid Section 7 is failing, reported a panicked voice over the communications net. "They're breaking through the dimensional barriers." Zethkar watched in horror as an entire defensive sector simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, but edited out of reality itself. Ships, stations, and billions of tons of defensive equipment vanished as if they had never been built. "General Martinez, can you compensate?" "Working on it," came the terse reply. "But Admiral, we're taking losses faster than calculated. These things learn from every engagement. They're adapting to our tactics in real time." The battle raged for 17 hours. Heroic charges by Federation battle groups bought time for human technicians to recalibrate their dimensional weapons. Desperate holding actions by hegemony shield ships allowed evacuation fleets to escape when defensive sectors collapsed. In the end, it came down to a choice that no one had wanted to make. "Admiral," Martinez said quietly, his image flickering as Terra Station took heavy fire from enemies that existed in 6 dimensions simultaneously. "We have one option left." Zethkar knew what the human was going to suggest. They had discussed it during the planning phases, filed it under absolute last resort, and hoped never to need it. "The galactic core detonation," Zethkar whispered. "It's the only way to create a dimensional disruption large enough to seal the tiers permanently. But it will sterilize everything within 20,000 light years," Zethkar finished. "Including all of our homeworlds. The fortress colonies will survive. Civilization will continue. But our species, our histories, our cultures, all of it dies with us." Around them, the battle continued to rage. Desperate voices called for reinforcements that didn't exist, reported breakthroughs that couldn't be contained, and requested orders that no commander should ever have to give. Zethkar looked around his bridge at crew members representing dozens of species, all of them young enough to have grown up knowing this day might come. They had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment, and their faces showed the same grim resolve that had carried them this far. "General Martinez, begin the detonation sequence." "Acknowledged, Admiral. It's been an honor serving with the Federation." "The honor was ours, General. Give my regards to Dr. Chen." Through the viewports, Zethkar could see Terra Station beginning to glow with energies that would soon reach into the galactic core itself and trigger a controlled collapse of the massive black hole that anchored their entire star cluster. The explosion would create a dimensional shockwave that would slam shut the tiers between realities, trapping any surviving devourers on the wrong side of existence. "All ships. This is Admiral Zethkar. In 10 minutes, this galaxy dies so that consciousness might live elsewhere. You have 10 minutes to say goodbye to the universe." Some captains used the time to record final messages for the fortress colonies. Others simply stood with their crews, sharing whatever comfort could be found in unity. A few turned their ships toward the enemy for one last charge against the hungry darkness. Zethkar thought about the young captain he had been when this all started, so confident in the Federation's superiority and terrified of humanity's potential. He thought about Dr. Sarah Chen and her desperate warnings that had been dismissed for over a decade. He thought about the billions of lives that would continue because a species barely a century into space travel had been willing to sacrifice everything to save people who had never trusted them. In the end, humanity had been right about everything. They were dangerous. They were unpredictable. They refused to accept their place in the natural order, and because of that, life would go on. The galactic core exploded in a burst of light that could be seen from neighboring galaxies. Reality folded in on itself. Dimensional barriers slammed shut, and the hungry darkness that had devoured countless civilizations found itself trapped in an empty void with nothing left to consume. In the fortress colonies at the galaxy's edge, 17 billion survivors watched their home stars die and began the long work of building a new civilization. They named their first new city Chen, in honor of the woman whose warnings had saved them all. And in the growing darkness where their galaxy used to be, human-designed monitoring stations kept eternal watch, making sure that nothing ever came through those sealed, dimensional barriers again.